Hey, Fancast, my name is Luke Pace, and welcome back to everyone who is already a subscriber to the YouTube channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe so you can see more great interviews, including the one coming at you right now. He is returning triumphantly after a first-round professional boxing KO. He is now 5-0 as a pro boxer. 4 of those 5 wins by stoppage, TKO, or KO. It is violent. Vince Mosca. Vince, welcome back to the show.
Good to be back, Luke. It's been too long. How you been, man?
It's been too long. It's been too long. I think I'm doing well, buddy. It's great to have you back on. I think I had you on. You might have been a 1-0 pro or a 2-0 pro boxer the last time I've had you on. I think so. But it's
It
been
was
a while.
I think it was the second or third. We didn't talk after the Zach Kelly fight, but it's been probably over a year and a half. Yeah.
It's been too long. And as some people don't know, but they're about ready to find out, I've known you for a very long time. When I was
Yep.
running Pursuit MMA in Norristown, Pennsylvania, you fought one of the fighters, Jordan Grenion Smith, in
Yep.
kickboxing. And that was, you guys were both amateurs at the time. It was probably 7 or 8 years, maybe even close to a
Yeah.
decade ago now. But we hit it off, and I've been staying in contact with you even before I ever did MMA Fancast. So it's been really great. And you are connected as a coach to Ground Control Gym, which is an MMA gym and all around martial arts gym in Maryland. And so as we talk about this fight, we're also going to talk about your coaching and your leadership at that gym because that comes up every time. But if Zach Kelly was your 4th fight, let's talk a little bit about Zach Kelly's fight and then this fight, because obviously I haven't done a good enough job keeping up on you. But let's start with 2 fights ago when you took on Zach Kelly. He's a friend of the show. He's been on several times to the show himself. So how'd that fight go down before we got to this fight from the weekend?
Zach actually won this weekend as well, and me and Zach damn near talk every day. Since we fought, we've actually been pretty cool since like the USK days back when me and you knew each other.
Yep.
I've had a lot of respect for him over the years. A lot of stuff happened leading up to that fight. I had a bunch of opponent changes, a bunch of weight changes. Zach was the only one that was willing to fill in on the short notice. So he met at, I think it was 178 pounds for that fight. And I was obviously nervous about fighting Zach because I've seen him over the years. I know how good he is. He's very fast. He has good punches. Works hard. All that. I got, I'm not gonna say I got lucky, but I mean I landed a shot early that changed the course of the fight. So I won my first round TKO. But Zach has the utmost respect for me, man, because he showed up. Didn't have to show up. He came in. I had like a good, healthy fear of Zach. So it's been really cool to see him rebound from that loss really well. I think he's won 3 pro boxing fights since that fight. He won the Art of War 175-pound kickboxing title. So he's kind of just picked up and kept it going since then. But no, in that fight, it was more so just he's a little faster. I might be a little bigger. So I was kind of, trying to time his speed a little bit early in the fight, take a few shots in the gloves, see what the angles look like that he was punching from. And, I made a good read. And I was lucky to get him out of there. But, he's still got all my respect. And on the right day, Zach could beat anybody if he's on his game. So it was kind of a bittersweet thing. Because again, like I consider Zach a friend. Like we talked Saturday night on the phone. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I consider him one. And kind of a bittersweet thing knowing that I had to fight him. I have to talk about beating him in that light. But he's a great fighter. He's a stud. And it's cool to see him, picking up where he left off after the loss.
Yeah, I've actually been in touch with Zach about this most recent win that he just had, trying to get him back on the show. We're working with schedules. You know how everybody is so busy.
He's got a crazy schedule. It seems like, man, he's working overnight all the time. He's got a wild schedule. It seems like.
And just like you're involved in coaching, he also runs Noble Boxing as well as being involved in an MMA gym. I mean, and it's really cool. Obviously, utmost respect to Zach, and that's always something I remember from you. I mean, you might have been like 20 or 21 when I first met you, when you fought Jordan. And
I'm getting old, man.
I know, but what I mean is you've always been a respectful guy. You've had a ton of talent for a very long time. People might not know, but at one point, right after you're amateur, before you're pro, you went through a series of injuries that thankfully have healed up. But there was a time where we were in communication about you going pro. I think it might have been kickboxing, MMA, but eventually now you've settled on boxing. So let's take us to this weekend. Who was your opponent? What organization was it for? And kind of give us the rundown of how this fight came together.
Yeah, so kind of wanted to get out of the state a little bit. I've had, some weird luck in Maryland, it seems like, for some reason or another. I just kind of tried to find any fight that would really pop up that made sense logistically, whether it was the fight or whether it was the travel. I like to travel for fights. It kind of gives it like a different feel. I don't like sleeping in my own bed before a fight. I like to kind of feel like I'm away doing a job. So I fought for St. Michael's Fight Promotions in Rock Hill, South Carolina. The promoter, Michael Englert, treated me great. He's been a pro fighter for years. Treated me very well. It was a smaller show compared to like Maryland Live or something like that. But that's kind of what I wanted. I didn't want a lot of pressure selling tickets. I didn't want a lot of pressure having 100 people show up as opposed to just the friends I wanted there. I had a few opponents bounce around. I ended up fighting a guy. He's got some experience in like bare knuckle and MMA, but I realized pretty quick he probably wasn't on my level. The big interesting thing about the fight was I'm kind of trying out cruiserweight a little bit. So cruiserweight in boxing, for some reason in boxing, the weight classes jump super high. It goes from 175 in light heavyweight to 200 pounds in cruiserweight. And naturally, I'll walk around about 195, 200 pounds, depending on if I, want to diet or not. But 175 is a little rough on me, and it definitely sucks a lot out of me. So I wanted to try the cruiserweight thing. I'm not going to lie, I didn't do it completely right. I wasn't like lifting weights the right way. I just didn't cut weight. I was actually 5 pounds under the morning of the weigh-in. So when I'm having like 6 eggs in the morning and a bunch of bacon and drinking water the whole morning, it was a little bit of a weird feel. It almost felt like it kind of took me out of my game because when you're cutting weight, you're very regimented with your running, your diet, your training. With this, I kind of, I might have shorted myself a little bit in certain parts of that. But this was kind of just a test run at cruiserweight. I knocked him down 3 times in the first round. So, I mean, I got him out of there pretty quick. I wanted to be a little more patient. I wanted to kind of set things up a little bit, but I landed the first shot maybe in the first 5 or 10 seconds. And I kind of looked over at my coach in the middle of the round, like I'm going to probably pour on the pressure, see if I can get him out of here a little bit. But going forward, I kind of like the idea of cruiserweight. I think I can fill into that pretty well if I do it the correct way. I can still make light heavyweight, but it's just the mental tax, as well as the physical tax. It takes a lot out of me. So at this point, I'm 31 years old. Like, sucking those 20 pounds out the week of the fight is just not really all that appealing to me at this point. So, but no, it went well. Like, I mean, I'm hoping to be back at that promotion in May. I think there's some talks of like a title fight, like a 6-round title fight type thing. So, I mean, I like going to South Carolina. We brought about 12, 15 people down there. And that's pretty cool for a 7-hour drive. So, I mean, if that's going to be my home away from home going forward in boxing, then that's completely fine with me based off how this weekend went.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's always great to hear of a good promotion. Some promotions are bigger and smaller, but a quality promotion is a quality promotion no matter where it is. So that's really great. Hats off to him and to you being willing to kind of make that your new promotional home. It's kind of a bummer, and I briefly messed around as a coach with USA Boxing, the official boxing weights, and then also kickboxing and Muay Thai seem to have some different weights. You know all that.
Yeah.
But it's a bummer that it's not the MMA standard weight of like 185, which would be
Right.
ideal for you. For MMA, it's 170, 185, 205, and then 206 to 265. But I'm glad to hear that this was a bit of a test for you. I think just because of your natural athleticism, speed, and if you add some muscle, you're a guy that I think could be very good at that weight. I remember we're going 10 years ago when you fought Jordan. He was a longer, taller opponent. I'm imagining you figured it out back then, and obviously you've been figuring it out since. For you, and I know there was a time where you're doing MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, stuff like that. What has made, and you mentioned this, I think, after maybe fight 2, what has made pure boxing, the sweet science, as people like to, what has that made how has that become your niche?
So it was weird at first. I mean, like my last amateur fight was boxing. I fought a tough guy in that one, and then the pro debut, then we talked and all that. But like for a while, it was such a weird adjustment because like you see punches in kickboxing and you think that's just boxing, but boxing is so much more intricate because kickboxing, you can arm punch, you can throw away punches because the kick is coming after, the knee is coming after. You know, like I think kickboxing is more based on like power and effective shots, but boxing, like you have to set things up over time. You have to have your feet in the right spot. You have to have your elbows in at all times. You have to have your head moving all the time. Like the defense is very different as well. Um, like you can't just high guard and walk somebody down that actually really knows how to, make you cap and make you pay for it. So that was kind of a rough adjustment when I started sparring strictly boxing with strictly boxers. Um, Little intricacies with just the punches themselves. Like one of my head coaches right now, Russ Shiflett, Maryland Hall of Famer, like we work on very basic fundamentals every session. We work on punch mechanics, and like everybody in their first week of kickboxing knows how to throw a 1-2, but like if you don't actually know how to throw the 1-2, you're probably throwing it wrong. So I've had to really like break a lot of things down, change my stance, change where I put my hips, change how I step forward, how I step back. Only recently has it kind of become a little more second nature for me. Like people are moving with me now, like, oh, you move like a boxer now. And the few times I've put the shin guards on the last year or two, that almost feels foreign to me now. Like I feel like my hips don't work. I don't like, it's a lot different. But it's taken some time. But at the end of the day, like fighting is fighting. Range is range. Power is power. Setups are setups. So if you have the idea of how to do it in one sport, you can transition. It's just going to be some learning curves a little bit. People ask me all the time, do you want to go back to MMA? You want to go back to kickboxing, Muay Thai, whatever? And I have interest in it still, of course. Like kickboxing is my first love. It'll always be like the best thing I'm coaching at, like all that stuff. But boxing has been like an interesting challenge, and it's been a good road for me so far. Like I'm winning fights. I'm favorable because I sell tickets and all that. I'm not gonna lie, but like I mean, like it's been fun to learn. I feel like I'm 20% as good as I think I should be with it. So I'm still learning on the job basically, but it's getting there. I'm seeing the improvements there. I haven't had to show it in the fights recently, but eventually when I have to, I know I'll be more than ready to show it off and show that I'm completely different than I was 10 years ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever. So it is nice though. It is nice kind of like seeing the changes in the skill set over time.
Sure. Well, one of the things that's really great is you've had years and years of coaching at ground control, and I think that also helps because something, and I know it's a coachism that people don't always like, but I always said as a coach is particularly in any type of martial art, you really only show in a fight a small percentage of the skills you have.
Exactly,
Why a
100%.
lot of times coaches, yourself included, coaches, we really want to develop a lot of deep skills, good skills, because
Right,
if somebody barely has, just all the basics, they get thrown into a fight a lot of times. But they end up not needing more skills. They just don't have
right.
there. You need to be you need to have more tools in your tool belt than you need when it comes
Right.
to a fight. This is not a one size fits all. We've even seen that at MMA, where somebody, is really good at an overhand and they win a lot of fights with a certain skill, but then they get into deeper opponents and that one skill gets taken away and they just look completely flat. It's no knock on them. It's just kind of why you always need to developing more and more skills.
Right.
As a coach, we'll obviously we'll come back to boxing, but as a coach, you mentioned kickboxing. That's your first love. What is the sport of coaching to you? Because I've often talked on this show, the sport of coaching is a sport in its own right, as far as the skill of being able to communicate with fighters, come up with game plans, adjust to what they can do, what they can't do, how you can communicate, all that. So how has the sport of coaching been going for you at Ground Control? And what are some of the highs and some of the successes of coaching kickboxing for that?
And just to touch on one thing before I answer that,
Of
like you
course.
said, like you train the broad skill
Oh,
set and you show 20% of it in the fight. Like me and Jordan years ago, we fought 6 minutes. If you really think about 6 minutes, that's a sprint. That's just like you don't get to show a lot. There's not a lot of setting things up. It's just two people doing what they can do the best in those 6 minutes. Now I'm adjusting to boxing, and like right now I'm doing 4 rounders, so I'm training for 12-minute fights. Like that's a lot longer of a fight, but in the big picture, still that's not a long fight at all. So like you're training everything and you're doing what you can do in the fights. And until you have to make the adjustments, you don't really get to show off a ton. So like that's kind of a long period of thing. I'm training on a lot of things right now that I'm not having to show off yet. And I've always kind of done that. So that's a good point. But also as far as the sport I like coaching the most, it's probably a two-ended answer on that because Kickboxing is absolutely what I enjoy. Muay Thai, like, we coach Muay Thai fighters at ground control, but also like the pure Thai style is not exactly like my bread and butter. Kickboxing is my favorite sport to coach, whether it's just pure kickboxing or kickboxing for MMA, because I like tying in the level changes, the takedowns behind it. But also, like, it's still very boxing heavy. Like, we have a guy fighting in the Golden Gloves on Saturday in DC. He's a state champion right now, named Mark Golubowski. He's a stud, straight boxer, no kickboxing experience at all. But even the kickboxers, the Muay Thai guys, the MMA guys we have, like, boxing is still a massive influence in that. As far as the guys we have, like, we had a lot of fights this past year. We really closed the year out hard. We had a multiple time full rules champion named Marcus Pollock at 135 pounds. I believe he's 16-1 between boxing and Muay Thai. And he's a hands heavy guy. He throws his punches for the most part. The guys that have that pure Thai style really don't deal with him well. And it's also why he's also a 4-0 amateur boxer, because he can transition it between both sports. I purely think that striking should be one umbrella. I think if the way you coach or the way your gym style is only adheres to one sport, then you're shorting out the other sports. You should be able to perform in kickboxing, boxing, Muay Thai, MMA if you have the grappling base. Your style should work for everything, not just one rule set. So the short answer of that is kickboxing. But the boxing guys at our gym are getting better. The Muay Thai guys are more than competent, and like, I love tying it behind MMA guys that can mix it up. Like Sean Susser, I know you're familiar with him. Keon Lomax, you have a 145er who's very good at our gym, making his pro debut soon. Taylor McMahon's a 155er, making his second pro fight soon. All of those guys have a very competent striking base. And I'm sure you've seen it too. You see guys that have multiple MMA fights, they don't look comfortable throwing punches. If they're not able to grab hold of you, they're not comfortable throwing punches. So I feel like all of those MMA guys should be able to compete in striking, because if you can't compete in striking when the grappling isn't going your way, you're shorting yourself a massive half of the game. So, but yeah, short answer, kickboxing is always going to be my favorite, but I like to mix it all together, obviously.
Well, and I love the fact that that's one of the reasons why I love having you on the show. Not only have I known you for so long, but also the depth of your excitement and your ability to answer questions just based on coaching. And of course, I mean that as a compliment. There was a video going around from a couple of years ago where Coach Belichick, the legend, there's like a throwaway question about a long snapper. It's a famous, and he goes off for like 20 minutes about the history of long snappers. And it just shows, like, when a coach is a coach, they should be able to, like, understand and coach all aspects. And I've often said, and it kind of sounds strange, but you're a multi-talented coach. Before I ever got into MMA coaching and training, I coached, and now I'm back to coaching college track and field and jumps. And I've often said, if you can coach the triple jump, which has 3 jump elements in one jump, and before we were legally allowed to use video, now we can watch video and slow it down and all that stuff. But when I started out coaching, there were video cameras, but it was illegal to review video cameras to coach. So you had it in a split second. A whole triple jump is maybe a second and a half, the whole jump. And my brain got really good at breaking down multiple elements. And then when I got around kickboxing, as you mentioned, Muay Thai and all different things, my brain was good at picking up little things, and that's what makes a big difference. I also remember, and this is a shout out to maybe amateurs or up and comers, listen to what Coach Vince, and also pro undefeated boxing, Vince is saying. Mentally, you need to be willing to adjust to styles that you might not love. I remember there were times where we would be training for like a double tie clinch, and then last minute in kickboxing or Muay Thai or whatever it was called, it would switch to glory rules, which is one, stuff. One, and a lot of times we were training everything, but a lot of times fighters have a hard time being like, okay, I have this skill, whatever the skill is, and now in this fight I can't use it because I'm under a different rule set. And I appreciate what you're saying is you have to be, as a fighter and as a coach, you got to be willing to figure out a way to win with the skills and the rule set that you're under. And that's a different mindset. And I know it can be challenging because martial arts has so many different rules and different intricacies. So for you already mentioned kind of your next fight is most likely in May. For you, where is the pro boxing going? Is it a matter of just one fight at a time, kind of like, I'm sure as you coach, or do you see a bigger picture as far as where you'd like to be, and kind of how do you? Because now you're definitely an established pro boxer for sure with five
Yeah.
wins, four by finish.
So it was weird. Like right before this fight got locked in, there was an offer to fight at Wells Fargo Arena for the bare knuckle show that just passed. The reason I turned it down, and I have no problem saying that I turned it down, was because I already had not fought in 11 months. I know if I fight bare knuckle, I'm not fighting for a while unless I get very lucky. Um, that is a bucket list thing for me. Maybe not a long-term path, but it is something I'd like to try because I think I'd be good at it. It scares the shit out of me. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't, but it is something I'd like to try at some point. As far as just pure pro boxing, I would like to get a cool opportunity. Like if the fight comes up in May and I get a shot of like a small championship, that'd be great. It'd be cool to put in my house somewhere. But look, I would like to do some cool stuff. I would like to keep gaining experience on the job, and I would like something to be like I'd like to be brought in somewhere where I'm not supposed to win. I would like to fight on a bigger card. Obviously, money is great. There's not an amount of money I'm going to make at any point that's life changing, but money would be great. But I would like to fight somebody with a good record that I'm not supposed to beat. I would like to beat them. Um, I'm not going to lie. I really have no desire to be a world champion. I'm 31 years old. I'm learning on the job, but I like to continue to train because it keeps me honest. It keeps me competitive. It makes me a better coach. I want to keep fighting. It's mostly fight by fight, but I mean, long term, I like to build the record up, fight the right guys, and then have a good opportunity, show I belong there, and then take it from there. I mean, I take it year to year. I don't take it fight to fight, but maybe year to year. Because I mean, last year after the Zach fight, I kind of lost all the momentum right away, and it's probably why my weight blew up a little bit because I was losing my motivation to continue to compete because nothing was popping up, and you almost find out like you think boxing is easier to get fights, but like boxing is as weirdly political as you hear that it is. Um, so it kind of takes the wind out of your sails a little bit. MMA doesn't really appeal to me as much. I love coaching the guys. It doesn't really appeal to me as much anymore. Kickboxing, there's so few opportunities in the United States to really make it worth the squeeze. But no, I mean, right now I feel like I'm getting better. I mean, yeah, I haven't had to take a lot of damage, like nothing like that. Like the injuries are mostly healed up. I'm not getting my head beat in. I can still form sentences somehow. But besides that, man, like just fight by fight. Like May would be the next step, and after that, just see what's there. Bare knuckle might be the cash out at some point because it'd be fun. But I have no desire to do that long term either. But now I'm enjoying it as it is right now, man. Like I enjoy I don't think I'm far off. I think something's gonna pop up in the next few months to where it's gonna be worth, all the time. But yeah, I'm not just gonna stick around forever and let my brains get beat in. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, I love your multi-layered. I think you might have met my twin brother at one of the fights, maybe.
Yes,
I have a
Mark. Yeah,
twin brother. Yeah, Mark. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
He's gonna love the fact that
Memory's good. I'm telling you.
right like that. Your brains aren't
So
that
good.
beat in yet. But he always complains, it's constructive criticism. We did share a womb. He always complains that I layer my questions with three or four questions. I love having you on the show because you layer your answers with like four or five layers. So
Yeah.
shout out to Mark Payson, my favorite twin. And I know he'll watch this and he still remembers you, of course, from back in the USKA days. So shout out to him. And I really do appreciate kind of the layers that you give in your answers, that there's so much there. And I apologize to all the fighters that I interview that I ask so many questions in one question. They're like, what am I answering? But Vince, you've handled it. You've handled it great. One thing that's interesting, and you had mentioned it in the fact that you're training for 12-minute fight for 4 3-minute rounds. And you were saying that, a lot of the skills that you're layering on and that you're adding isn't really going to show up until there's adversity, until you have to do defense, until you have to fight from ahead, fight from behind. There's all different scenarios. And I love the mindset, and that's the coach's mindset, but it's also the underdog mindset. I love the mindset you have that at some point you're going to be given, hopefully, a pro boxing fight where you're expected to lose. And that's the type of fight where your better skills, your deeper skills are going to have to come out. Right. Because when you're in the later minutes against maybe a person with more skill and those type things, you have to kind of rise to the occasion. So I think being trained for that, you always want to train for the worst. situation in a fight, not, hey, everything's going smoothly, you know.
Of
And you'll
course.
see this, I'm sure you and I've seen sat next cage side. I always love when a fighter gets a first round knockout and they're kind of like surprised, because that's how it should be, right? You should be like, because you were ready to fight a whole fight. And when you get
Right,
a
right,
knockout in the first round, you should be like, wow, that was better than I thought.
right.
And I've certainly seen, unfortunately, and everybody has to learn from life, but I've certainly seen and been around fighters that after they lose, let's say a decision, they'll say things, you know, backstage. They'll say things like, my game plan was to get him out in the first round. And if I couldn't do that, I knew I was going to lose. It's like, okay, then you shouldn't be fighting. You know, you should have a game plan to win like 8 different ways and not just one way.
Yes.
But we could talk coach shop all day long. I really appreciate you coming on. You're always just a welcome person on the show. I'm hoping that we can get you back on if a fight, you know, whenever your next fight does happen. Love, particularly if it's that one in May that's about. But whenever it is, I can't wait to have you back on. Always an honor. A shout out to anyone that's ever trained at Pursuit MMA. I don't get to mention that much, but you remember that gym from back in the day.
Yeah.
And Jordan Grenion Smith and all the people that trained with me for the years there. Always great to have you on the show. You've been listening to Luke Basin with MMA Fancast with the one, the only, Violent Vince Mosca. Thanks so much.
Thank you for always having me, Luke. Thank you for all the
Take care,
support, man. I
brother.
appreciate it.
Always
Thank
an
you.
honor.